today I'm going to show you how to remake Singularity. That was my recreation using not much more than the Sub 37 and some TR-808 sounds. There are just 3 tracks of synth in the track. There's the main lead line, the arpeggio that bubbles all the way through, plus some little noise shots to add a bit of life to the percussion. And then there's a pretty simple beat, mainly using the Roland TR-808 plus some hats from the TR-606, as far as I can tell anyway. It doesn't change much throughout the track. There's little flourishes here and there, but mainly it's a straight beat all the way through. So let's start off by creating the beats. And we'll start off with a nice clean 808 kick, simply playing 4 to the floor. The loop in the track is 2 bars long, so we'll just look at bar 1 for now, and we'll do bar 2 once we've got all the sounds sorted. So on bar 1 we have open hats and closed hats. I've got it here on flashing with the white light, which means it's a 606, same as the closed. So let's have a listen to just those. So keep them quite snappy and tuned down a little. And next up are the claps. These are pretty distinctive as they rely on a delay to keep them bouncing along, but the delay isn't on every single clap, only on one every now and then. So just listen to that. And then we've got these toms that sort of roll at the end of the first bar. Let's just bring those in. So the mid tom, we've put in 4 on 11, 12, 13 and 14, and the high tom comes on the last 2 of the 16. So it's starting to sound a bit like it now, isn't it? It's not perfect, I know, but I'm just building the beat on this before I transfer it to the DAW to tweak it and make it sound a bit more professional. But this is a nice and easy way of showing how it's all put together. So moving on to the second part of the bar by pressing B. And here we don't have the tom roll, but we have the low tom playing half a beat before the end. We need to get it into the DAW, as I say, and start automating a few parameters and then add in some extra effects. And we'll look at doing that once we've got the synth lines in place, which we'll look at now. There are just 2 main synth lines here, and first we look at the little arpeggio that runs all the way through. And this is a really simple line, but it's been recorded quite cleverly from what I can tell. The sound is the initial patch from the Sub 37 or something extremely similar. It's just a simple sawtooth, and the arpeggio is just 4 notes, changing the top 2 notes from an A flat to a B flat, and it just plays those 2 patterns all the way through. It's simply so, all very simple so far, but this is where the arpeggio line starts to get a little bit more interesting. The change of note, as far as I can tell, doesn't happen as you'd expect. You'd expect it on the 2nd, the 4th and the 8th bar, but in this it seems to be repeating itself every 12 times, and this creates a nice atmosphere throughout the track when you're not expecting the change of note. It just sort of happens, it floats around. And then we've got the second really nice bit of production where you hear the change of note is sort of crossfades in, and that's because we're listening to the delay rather than to the original line. At least I think that's what's happening. So let's just show you what I've done here. Here's the arpeggio line, but here I'm using Yuhi's Diva. Just made things simpler than plugging the Mogan at the time. I've added some harmonics from Softtube, just to give it a bit of dirt. And I'm using Echo Boy from Sound Toys, which is pretty much my go-to delay. I use it on absolutely everything. And you can see on the automation data here, I'm also gently opening and closing the filter. All very clever, but seems so simple. Without all those little extra production tricks, it wouldn't be quite the same, would it? And the next line is the big lead, and again, it's all based on simple sounds, but taking it to interesting places. So we'll start again with the initial patch on the Sub 37, which is just a simple standard sawtooth wave on oscillator 1. I'll initialize the patch. The next thing to do is add a bit of the synth zone overdrive. It's called a multi-drive here. Almost there already. Now let's add a little bit of envelope amount to modulate the filter over time. So we'll close the filter over a little bit. And I've just added a little bit more of that multi-drive to get it closer to the original. And now we've essentially got the basis of the main lead sound. And now he just starts changing this tone throughout the track by changing parameters and tweaking little things here and there. So let's go through a few of them now. It's all really simple but very effective. And one of the first things he does in the first few bars of the main sound is he adds like a little bit of grit. You're not sure what it is. It just sounds like a little bit of fuzziness. And all he's doing is modulating the filter with LFO2. Then have it on high range so it's going really fast, almost like an FM. So a really nice little effect, and then he brings in oscillator 2. So let's bring it in there, and it's just a sawtooth as well. So getting bigger, and then he slightly detunes that to make everything sound even fatter, and you get that sort of beat in between the two oscillators. All sounds really good, doesn't it? Then he puts some glide on, and glide sort of slides between each note. So let's put some of that on. And we put legato mode on, so it does it only every now and then. So only when you're holding one note and you press the next. But if I do this, it won't. So sometimes you'll hear with sliding notes, and sometimes you'll hear with all the notes being nice and distinct. All very clever. And then he adds some oscillator sync just for a moment or two, and it goes really clean. And then he adds 7 semitones to oscillator 2, which is really the signature sound of the track. All these tricks are really lovely, aren't they? And then there's the odd pitch bend as well. Have that with just one. So he starts off with a single oscillator, brings in a little FM, then adds another oscillator, then detunes that, and then detunes it even more, and then he retunes it with oscillator sync, then he drops oscillator 2 out completely for the last section, all the way through, tweaking and tweaking. And if you look at what I've done in the DAW here, this is the main sub 37 track. And these are all the automation parameters I'm using throughout the track. So you can see all the way through, little things are happening. Keeping things sounding interesting. And then of course, there's a delay on that as well. I've brought my gorgeous Moog Foga delay pedal by Moog. It's very, very expensive for what it does. But on the track you heard on the intro, I just used the Sound Toys Echo Boy plugin again. As I said, I use that thing all over the place, and I've also added a little bit of chorus just to add a little bit more life to it. And now the next thing to do is just add those finishing touches. To polish this up then, I've taken what I did on the TR-8 and transferred it to the DAW. I've used the Roland Cloud TR-808 and the TR-606 in Logic. So let's listen to what I've done with that, and let's listen to the toms first. So there's loads more reverb and delay on that than there was on the TR-8. And now let's listen to that with the kick in there as well. It's all gone really atmospheric all of a sudden, hasn't it? Really nice. And then we'll add the claps. And what I did here, to make sure I got the delays right, is I created a separate track with just the bouncing delays. So I've got 2 tracks of claps, one with the main clap and one with the delayed clap. Then add in the hi-hats. And those toms are a little bit too crisp and clear, aren't they? If you listen to the original track, there's something over the top of those, and it sounds to me like just simply white noise. I've called it in here noise shots. And it starts off at the beginning of the track nice and tight, but as the track builds, it gets looser and looser, increasing the release time, which helps create sort of a big atmosphere. And that release becomes longer and the filter opens up and it just adds a bit more life, so that in the build we get And at the end of that build, there's no big crash cymbals, no big boom. It just sort of dissolves into a sort of a general sort of floatiness of the hi-hats, which have been processed through the Eventide black hole reverb, which I've just made massive, and I've mixed it higher and higher and increased the size of the reverb. So in the end, it builds and it sort of flows over the top. Well, it was a bit of an eye-opener, this one. A very clever use of some simple tones that anyone can recreate. It really is just a couple of simple synth sounds and some classic old drum machine samples, and you can use pretty much any soft synth for that style of lead, and there are 808 and 606 drum samples all over the internet, so you don't have to buy Roland Cloud or dedicated sample packs, however nice they are. And if you've already got a DAW, you can recreate this for free. You've probably got all the sounds you need somewhere in your DAW already. And that's what you can do if you've got the imagination. All in all then, a really effective but simple track. And I hope you found that useful, and if you want to try it yourself, you can catch this again on our From the Studio playlist on the ClubbingTV official YouTube channel. And I'll upload the Logic file to my Patreon page if you want to take a closer look, and that's Starsky Car on Patreon. You should be able to load the basic project even if you don't have the same plugins as me.